Welcome to the Health Coach Nation podcast. My name is Hailey Rowe. I'm a sales and marketing coach and strategist for health coaches, life coaches, and wellness professionals who want to become a leader in their field by building their online community, rocking their sales process, and finally feeling confident about how they promote themselves and their marketing. On this show, we talk about tips to grow your business, save yourself time, and finally be able to create a sustainable, profitable business. Let's get into it. Hi, everybody. Today we're here with Dave Pamah, and he is a really interesting person. He has so many topics he could talk about with us today because, first of all, he's an ex-athlete. He was actually a professional. Say it for everybody.
Yeah, international athlete, really. Competed at the British Olympic trials, and then I reached the semi-finals of the Commonwealth Games, which is, I think, the second biggest outside the Olympic Games or Pan-American Games.
That's with track, right?
Track, 800 meters, 400 meters. Right.
Okay, so there's that. He also has worked as a firefighter for over 25 years. He's overcome a lot of challenges. So we're talking about, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, all the challenges you guys face, and he's going to share a little bit more about that. But he's had to overcome things like racism, bullying, dyslexia, and he has turned all of this adversity into his current career as a life coach. And he wrote a book called Firefighting from Within, which he'll definitely be able to tell us a little bit more about. But he loves providing motivation, insight, and support to others who are struggling with their own personal battles. And he went from, many different careers and interests to finding what he really wanted to do, which is being a podcast host, a life coach, and supporting people with their motivation and mindset. So welcome to the show, Dave. Thanks so much for coming.
You're welcome. It's really, really great pleasure coming along to really share some of the things I've been through. Some are quite unique. I mean, when I first joined as a firefighter, for instance, most people said they had never met a firefighter because, as with the other public services, people, might eventually meet a police officer for whatever reason, or met a nurse or something like that. But so really what I'm trying to say is that, I've been to incidents and experienced things that maybe not, most people have come across and seen stuff as well.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things I always think about when I think about my entrepreneur journey is like everything before becoming an entrepreneur, like trying to be an actress and trying to be a singer and, some of the things growing up. It's almost like it prepared, bad sales jobs, etc. It's almost like I feel like it prepared me to face more rejection. And I haven't had to probably face as much as you have as far as adversity when it comes to being a firefighter and an athlete. I'm sure you've had to do a lot of things that were very hard. But tell us, do you feel like, how did you decide that you wanted to take all these things that you've been through and turn it into this book and becoming a life coach?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously the fitness side has always been in me because I did that from a young age. At school I was pretty useful as an athlete, let's put it that way. Well, actually, reached good levels. So fitness became part of a way of life for me to begin with. And then although I kind of teenage years, you sort of might mix with the crowd and, party a bit and almost sway off, the track a bit. But the other thing is I did firefighting was one of the jobs I wanted to join, and it took a while, but I eventually joined at the age of 25. So that became my career. But the thing is, as well as experiencing those things early on in life, like bullying at school in particular, and with my, I found out later in life I had dyslexia, and it all kind of made sense in that sense, and obviously some racism as well, which just happened to be something I had to deal with. But what made me choose the path of going down the coaching side was that I experienced some stresses anyway from the job, I think, but also maybe post-traumatic and other things just started catching up with me towards the end of my career. And I didn't really think much of it until I actually did retire. And then I really got some flashbacks, a couple of scary ones, and I decided to face it and find out what's really going on. I wanted to try and find out what's going on. So there's a charity called the Firefight Charity, which is like a rehab. And I've only done the physical side, like where firefighters get injured. I've actually had injury physio as an athlete as well, but this is more serious because military and firefighting can have some very serious injuries and psychological side as well. So this time when I retired and I had these kind of psychological things and I was having nightmares and things like that, I found out about the symptoms and there was some serious suicide going on as well. Numbers started increasing as well. So I wanted to really get checked out and went for the rehab on the psychological side. Did some mindfulness training and everything else, and spoke to psychologists there, and coaching was one of the things. I mean, I looked at sport coaching, obviously I've been around that, but then I looked at life coaching, which wasn't big when I first started it. 25 years ago, you didn't really hear about business coaching, health coaching, sports coaching as much. It was probably tied in with fitness or personal training, which was just developing then as well, but now it's really sort of a booming industry for most things, for many people to choose now. So I decided to go down that road, and before I actually retired, I was working on a book aimed at doing some motivational speaking called Firefighting from Within. People was asking me, are you actually doing some life coaching, blah blah blah, because it was more about my life and my experience, before I joined the fire service, at school, and some of the bullying, and during, just giving some analogies of how I coped. And there's this analogy of which people use, how sports people, the mindset is also good for entrepreneurial mindset as well. So there's a lot of motivation speaking around that, which I used a couple in the book as well. So that got me interested. Yeah, that got me interested in the coaching.
Yeah, and when it comes to writing a book, starting a podcast, doing your life coaching, which are all the things that you're working on right now, what have been some of the mindset things that you learned from your other careers and have transferred to entrepreneurship? Like what do you define as an entrepreneur mindset, and how does somebody who maybe feels adversity in their business, or they feel like it's hard, what are some hacks or tools they can do to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the obvious ones, obviously with goal setting and focusing are the main ones, but it sounds so simple to say that, but really we do choose a goal, which I learned as an athlete at first. You start with planning, in the winter, if it's a summer sport, but any even a boxer for a big fight, or American footballers, there's that side. And dealing with adversity, I mean, the fact is that because I did get some stressful moments, and even sports people do, and some that retire, it's very common as well for them. It's been a sort of a big difference in their life. I would say that mindfulness helped a lot as well. So those two things really, staying focused, and then I did use some meditation for warm up, visualization, and stuff like that. I think in entrepreneurship, if you're less stressed, you're going to be more creative. You're going to be able to actually be ahead of the competition through having a creative mind as well. And that certainly works in sports as well. If you're more creative and more, you can move around and feel better, and and things like that, find the right tactics, and you're not under pressure. You deal with the pressure. That's going to be the same with business as well.
Okay, so when you say mindfulness, what does that truly mean?
Well, mindfulness is from my understanding, it's having an awareness. It's really having a mindful awareness of what's going on with your body, everything around you, really. I mean, even there's this thing of saying mindful eating, and it's not just thinking about what you're eating that's healthy or anything like that. It's actually being mindful of how you're eating, and and then you realize portion sizes and things like that. So it's really increases your awareness which does make a big difference. I can say that very much. As I say, it's used a lot now before sports performance, and you hear about people being in the flow or being in peak condition. There's also a peak mental condition as well. So that's all around mindfulness and
okay. Yeah. So wanting to, when it comes to, being an entrepreneur, you have to be mindful about and aware of maybe your habits, how you're reacting to things, and also having goals, as you said, is important. Being able to visualize those goals and feel what it would feel like to be at that goal. So how, what have been some hard moments you faced either with the racism or the bullying or whatever, and how did you what's your ritual or way of handling those things? Do you because you can be mindful in those experiences,
exactly,
aware of, okay, this happened to me, right, or this has occurred, and I'm aware that I'm feeling bad, right? But what do you do to kind of grow through those experiences?
Well, I'd say first of all, it helps you deal, as I say, where you want to deal with pressure in sports. It helps you deal with that to a certain point, but let's face it, sports people, they experience racism as well, and let me tell you, they might slip out of their mindfulness and get angry and really retaliate towards the crowd. That happens in soccer. Sorry, my sports. We call it football, by the way, not American football. And it does happen a lot, and they want to retaliate sometimes to the crowd. But now there's this thing where they've organised something to say, you know what, the announcer's going to say, stop the racism towards the football players, or they're just going to walk off, and it has happened. That is the way to deal with it. An organised demonstration where there's no violence works much better. I mean, I was into activism through my trade union as well and things like that. And I still, I'm as well as being a mental health advocate, the stigma around that, which is why suicide's grown, because people don't want to speak out, and it's good to talk about these things. And it's the same with racism. That's the way to deal with it, through the activism like that, so that you can stop and have people understand. Because I know what's happening in the States. It's where it happened recently, where it grew, it spread around the world. It's just a beginning, but it's that people are now hopeful that, from 50 years ago where you had the campaign, it's actually developing and things are getting moving. There's a process. So that's really, if it's an organized, peaceful way of doing it, and, through activism, because there's no other way around it. That would be the way forward. Yeah.
Well, and I think what you're saying is a couple things, because I agree, dealing with hardships, and it doesn't mean that you have to just say, well, it is what it is, and it's fine. Instead, your energy is better channeled through activism and not bottling up these experiences, these stories, etc. And I'm actually reading a book right now that's called, I already finished it, but it's called Personality Isn't Permanent. And he talks about, or no, actually, there's same author. Power Doesn't Work. So in both of these books, he kind of talks about this theme that when you bottle up things or you don't actively express something, it really takes a toll on your health, on your body, and you just build up this resentment, versus when you channel your energy in something productive that's going to make a change, and something that you believe in and that's aligned, and that you can find others who, are with you. It's so much better, because why should you take out something on yourself?
Exactly.
Up, right?
Which is what's going on when I thought, no, I have to, because I thought I was doing fine. I was successful really in my life in terms of what I was doing. I knew what I went through, but I had to really look at it. And like I said, football sports people will still blow it. Even though they've had all this training, and they're the tops people, I'm sure you'll see, there's times where they'll lose it still, so I have to just be honest. I'm a human, you're a human being, so you have to, at times you have to speak out and say, look, I've got, I've got to deal with something here, or be honest about something. And some people, their marriages are saved because the husband or even the wife might say, you know what, I'm going to be honest, it's my fault. I've been drinking too much. I've been whatever. I've just, and I'm the one to blame. And things might get sorted out. And you're doing yourself, fine as well, rather than carrying on. And because it could be PTSD or something that's affecting it. And when you speak out about it, it actually helps. And the wife or even the husband, depending, will start understanding and going through that, you see.
Yeah. And when you say something out loud, it loses power over you versus if you keep something bottled up or you're hiding something, it tends to have power over you. And in the book, they also talk about how addiction is just our bad habits really come from a lack of connection. Addiction comes from lack of connection. So maybe if you're seeking alcohol, you don't have a connection with a purpose, or you don't have a connection with people, social relationships, and you feel lonely or whatever. And so when it comes to, what you were saying about goal setting and being able to visualize and being in momentum, focused, exactly. Half of the battle is trying to deal with things that make us lose focus and bad habits that pull us off of our goals. So what are some suggestions you have as somebody who's had to be very disciplined in your life, for people who want to really be able to move towards their goals consistently?
Well, the first thing is to say if you've got a coach, I suppose, really, because although you could do stuff yourself, I suppose. There is self-help, a lot of self-help stuff around. I've got a self-help book, but really it's more of a memoir. It's more just putting stuff out and saying, look, this is how I looked at stuff from. But I think if you have someone, not necessarily only to hold you accountable, but just someone there to just guide you along the way, that helps a lot. So in sports, of course, you need the coach there. And I think it works the same in business and life as well. With my own experience of being around coaches since a young age, since the age of 12, so I know it works. So I think having a good team around you as well. So the team can be your own family at home. It could be some friends that you choose that are going to be the right ones around you at the time if things are not going well with your business or it's looking like it's going well, but you want the right team to make sure it's not going to mess up, or you want it to get more, bigger. So team, a coach, I think look at that, sport, the life coaching and the coaching business now, it's derived from sports and then business. And now it's, as I say, it's everywhere. And it's the same concept. So really it's that.
Yeah.
And then developing your mindset, which I mentioned, earlier. And that could be a personal journey as well for you, depending on your own makeup, because everyone's personality is different. So.
Yeah. And what you're saying is having a team or having a coach, it's good because number one, they can give you the strategies and support and accountability. But number two, it changes your environment. And when you aren't around, like when you surround yourself with people who have higher standards, and in certain environments, when we feel like we're around people who challenge us, we expect a different level from ourselves. So I think that's a really good point. And one of the things I want to shift to, because you've had a lot of almost like identity shifts in your life. Like you've been an athlete, you've been a firefighter, you're doing coaching, and you're a podcast host now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, as you've stepped into podcast host, author, and coach, identity. How have you been growing this confidently? Like, tell me a little bit more about what have you been doing to get some of these results you're getting, because your podcast, for example, is really taking off and has a lot of great guests. So tell us a little bit about that shift at number one, and how you've just like taken it by storm. And then number two, I do want to ask you a little more about the podcast and how you've grown that, because we have a lot of people who listen who have podcasts.
Podcast does help a lot, and I must admit I did go on a podcasting workshop. There's many of them, and I didn't need to. I started it off on my own, but then I needed an extra push because I wanted to monetize it through the coaching it was the right one for me to do that. So it's like where you have a coach and a team, and you're kind of being held accountable. So it's a business coaching, it's worth spending the money on. So that's what helped. I started, anyway, the journey started with the book just before I retired from the fire service about 6 years ago. So the book was published, self-published, I should say, but it's published through one of those vanity, whatever. It's through Hay House self-publishing department anyway. But anyway, it's not Hay House Publishing.
Okay.
So the idea was really to, I thought, okay, yeah, here's my career coming to an end, my actual official career as a professional firefighter, and what to do. I weren't really doing track coaching or sports coaching anymore or anything like that. And personal training was kind of a little flirtation thing. So I looked at, motivational speaking was growing, and I actually networked with a lot online mainly, and I was doing some personal development work, and there's some reasonably good motivational speakers both in the US and UK mainly. So Facebook was just growing, just started growing obviously by the mid, 5 years ago. It's huge then. So that looked like the likely thing. So a lot of them had books. You don't necessarily have to have a book, but it helps, from what I've been told anyway. So it started from there. So I did get this book published with the help of a motivational speaker from Arizona, and she published a book. She said, "I'll help you." So she co-authored it, or contributed, you could say, but it was my book to use to help me. But the speaking didn't take off too much, just because I wasn't really able to travel much. So I did some sort of book signings and a few speaking stuff. But then, as I say, I had the stressful moments that came up, and I went for the firefighters charity mindfulness rehab thing. And then someone sort of mentioned, "Are you a life coach?" when they looked at the book and my website at the time, which just had my book and some blogging stuff. And I always thought about doing podcasting at the same time. So after I did the mindfulness rehab in 2018, I started the podcast, and I put it out there that I actually wouldn't mind being a life coach. So I took a kind of introductory course and built it up from there, and then put it out that I'm doing coaching now. And then that's when I got headhunted by Aura, which is like an app, like a mindfulness app, like Calm and Headspace, or they're rivaling them. Yeah, they're rivaling them. So they asked me if I'd like to be a coach because of some of the things I was putting out. So now they're growing their community. So that's what made me think, okay, well, I'm going to focus on the coaching and the podcasting now, because I'm doing some audio tracks for the app. You see, just speaking. Some of it's some of it's chapters from my book, and some of it is what I've an extension. Of instead of doing motivational speaking, it's doing it on audio for the app, for the mindfulness app. So that started developing from there. So I just built on the coaching courses, and then I said I'm going to the Topia. I'm starting my own podcast show, which was the Pamah show, which Hailey is a very nice guest on my show recently. And then I started picking up guests. Some were friends that I've known from international sports and business people that I networked with, personal event world, and obviously on Facebook, you can just suddenly pick up guests, and you'll find that people would like to be guests on the show, but for some reason, I don't know. Some people get drawn to you if you do it right, or depends on the content. I mean, Hailey might be able to tell you more about that. She's sort of sales and marketing, but what I do know is podcasting is definitely one of the marketing tools, and a good tool to have anyway. I think podcasting is huge. Obviously, life coaching is huge industry now, and business coaching. So it's one of the tools. It's great to have. During the lockdown, I had a lot more people approaching me. I know I approached Hailey because I like her concept of what she's doing, and she also went on the one of the coaching things I really admire. The
Potential Institute. Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Which is ICF accredited. So I wanted her on my show anyway because I saw a few things that she's doing. She's a beautiful singer, by the way. Sorry about that. So anyway, because I've got people in show business and the music business as well, so that's why it caught my attention. Sports and entertainment's kind of But anyway, saying that, podcast is a mixture of education and entertainment, by the way. So if you can actually entertain your guests whilst educating them, that is really good content as well as having some kind of good way of interviewing. But I just did it naturally, really. If you can't, there's stuff out there to help you get the content out, or maybe Hillary's marketing skills might point you in the right direction with getting the right content to market with.
Yeah. So, okay, got it. So you had, I want to actually point back to the Aura thing, because when they approached you, how did they, because this, a lot of people listening would love a sponsor or an opportunity to get in front of you.
Yeah.
How did they approach
right,
you?
yeah.
How did they find you?
Yeah, so I had before I did the podcast, I had a blog which has some malware on my WordPress site. I'm not on WordPress now, I'm just on another one to do my put my podcast on. So I didn't podcast in, I just put the odd blog with photographs and videos of more things I'm doing, but inspirational as well at the same time. And this was going on from 2010 to around 2018-ish, maybe. But it was just before I started the podcast, because the malware, I had to just completely scrap that website and then start all over again. I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to do podcasting. That's what's actually really the trend, what's going on. And it suits me better. I prefer podcasting than blogging, although there's nothing wrong with blogging. So when I put out a blog saying, right, okay, I've just qualified as a coach and I'm now going out and doing this and starting putting some stuff out, Daniel, who's one of the and his brother is the directors, and they just started the app then, said, yeah, Dave, we've just seen your info, we love it, and can we get on a Skype call with you? I spoke to Daniel, he told me the background why he started it, which is more personal to him, so like I went personal with my story. And then he said, yeah, we really want you on board. And then there's a number of mindfulness coaches, life coaches, like the channel I'm on, sleep coaches, because it's a sleep app as well. In fact, it's getting known as a sleep app. And a few other things, stories, there's gratitude stuff, music for relaxation and things like that. So it's that's how the app works. And that's how he approached me. And I've just been putting some audios. I started off putting a few, and then, and so, as I say, a few was chapters from my book, and then extended it. As you do with speaking, you use your book as an extension for your workshops and things like that from the book. So
yeah.
But the latest couple have been more around the COVID situation with the stressful moments that people must be going through, really. So yeah, that's how it started, and now they're extending the community a bit more, so we can reach out and mix the coaches with the community. Yeah,
love it. Yes, so having that opportunity was really good. And then when you have your book, which everybody who's listening here, having a book is a great lead magnet almost, or a way to get people introduced at a very low barrier. They're not buying a $1,000 coaching program, but they get to know about your method. They kind of buy into it and do it themselves, right? And so then they're more motivated to be like, okay, like I like his work, I like what it's done for me, and that kind of thing. And by the way, if anybody here listening on the show wants to write a book, contact me. I can put you in touch with a couple people who are really awesome with that. Not writing your book for you, but you know what I mean. So just helping you promote it. But anyways, so you had your book, and then you had the podcast. And notice how what you're doing here is you're creating this, like, you're just putting yourself out there, and you're creating a little bit of a value ladder, right? So you have this book, you have the podcast, you're in this app, and then with the podcast, what you said about how it's important to entertain and educate people, that is so true, because I find the podcasts I get hooked on have little moments where they're funny, or they have, it's just it's not like somebody saying, here's step one, here's step two,
that's right.
and I'm by my phone. Right. So I think what you said, you nailed it when it comes to what makes a good podcast. And having big guests, like the fact that you probably had some big guests has helped it grow, because they're sharing it with their networks and their audience. And the reason originally, and I kind of forgot about this, but the reason I started my podcast was because I just wanted to talk to cool people. And I just wanted an excuse to say, hey, like, let's talk, right? So that's
how it starts, isn't it? It's just conversation, isn't it, really? People love just digging into podcasts anyway, irrespective of who they are. And they think, I love this podcast, like that. just from the conversations. And
yeah,
you don't
so, exactly. Like we probably wouldn't have built a relationship or talked if we didn't have podcasts. So that's really a good thing that you point. I mean, that podcasts are for too. And the last thing, so so you have these different things going for you, right? Is there anything else advice you would give to entrepreneurs who are kind of like, yeah, I'm doing these things, but they're not taking off yet, or I feel discouraged? What would you say to them?
I'd say just keep digging in through the tough times or difficult times, challenging. I mean, we are going through that now. So actually, this industry you're in now, which Hillary's coaching you through or offering her marketing stuff, is actually a good time. It's a good opportunity to really put yourself out there. I don't think it's one of those industries that's going to suffer like, say, obviously the travel industry, the airline, things like that. This isn't one of those things that's going to go like that. But you do need to put the hard work, and even coaches themselves. Coaches need coaches, and there'll be tough times. And even with Hillary, if you find her a personable person, she's actually a coach. If you need to, something's going bad, it's not just only, this is just about marketing, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's how I pick it up on Hillary anyway. And the same for me. But the thing is, it's really, I mean, my thing was running, but I could have done different sports. I could have, some people, I was good at many sports, but there were rough times through the 90 minutes of a soccer game, or football. We call it football, sorry, but they're not going to keep thinking about that bad tackle and the twisted ankle or they got knocked out. If they can come around after 10 minutes, they're going to carry on. So you've got to get through that little trough of that time. So me, if I think, oh no, I feel like stopping now. This run is really it feels like the toughest run I've had. And if you keep going, I found out I ran a personal record or personal best because of how tough it was. It means you're doing well sometimes and you're actually going for the best time ever. Best performance, I should say.
Yes.
That's a little performance coaching there. So I'll say that. Just keep digging in your mind. And mindfulness comes in play there as well. So I think about my breathing, my form, that. You focus on yourself and just pick yourself up and just make sure you just keep going. Obviously, if you're injured or something really bad, I'm talking about sports now.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the business, if something really bad is going on, if someone's obviously bereavement or something and it had to stop for a while, you have to do it. Right. I mean, businesses had to stop. For the last few months,
Right.
So
I hear. Okay. So, but also what you just said applies to business. Like, focus on the process of your business, your form. What training, meaning what are you putting out there for your marketing? Paying attention. Do I have any injuries or holes in my business? Right. So
there's going to be some tough times as well.
Yeah.
It's just how you get through it.
Yes, and my kitten's making an appearance because
I was going to say, I thought it was a little dog, but I was going to say nice doggy, but anyways, a kitten. I wasn't looking properly.
Oh, it's a kitten. But
okay.
He climbs up my leg and cries if I don't.
All right, I can see now.
He got in here somehow. But anyways, I think what you're saying is really valuable, and I didn't mean to leave this until the end, but since I have you here, and because you are actively an anti-racist and helping with all of that. Can you give us some advice for how in our business we can be inclusive and be doing what's right?
I mean, it's a long topic really, but
we might have to break it up into a
I mean, it's hard in terms of I don't know your business and I don't know how it is, but I think really you want to look at the top. If you're the CEO or if it's a government leader, they're the ones that needs to make the shift and sort of bring it down, cascade it down, because really on the ground, you're going to get all kinds of people with all kinds of opinions. And you can see what's going on the ground in America at the moment, obviously now, he's bringing in like National Guards and whatever, federal. So what I'm trying to say is we don't want that kind of war going on. And really at the top, if there's a mindset shift with, the government, the president, with the CEO of a big company like Starbucks, Amazon, whatever, Serena Williams' husband stood down and said, I don't want this in history. 2020 is now going to be a historical date forever, So I don't want this to someone to say, what did you do in 2020 then? Oh, you didn't step aside and let, It's a shift that has to come from the top. I know at the bottom there's a lot more work and it's a topic forever, but that's what I would say anyway. To start with.
Yeah. Okay.
A shift to work on inclusiveness for all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you for coming on today, and definitely might be something we have to explore more in the future. Yeah. And Dave, I really appreciate you for coming on the show today, and check out his podcast. He has so many awesome guests and is just a wealth of knowledge, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah. Hailey, thanks very much for bringing me a show, and I'll be willing to come on anytime you want. Again, we can talk about other topics. So
cool. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And if you liked it and want to reserve your very own free sales audit, go to haileyrowe.com/strategy-call to book your very own free sales audit. On the call, we'll talk more about the common concerns you get from your ideal clients, how to overcome those concerns, how to coach through objections, how to change your mindset around sales, and improve your sales process so you can be closing and converting more clients. I can't wait to connect with you, and go to haileyrowe.com/strategy-call to take the first step. Thanks so much. Have a good day.